Dr. Shawn Talbott.
Hey,
so good to see you,
my friend.
2024 Supply Side West.
Yeah,
how many of these? I was going to ask you the same question. How many of these have you done?
We have been coming to this show for years and years.
Crazy.
I want to say 99 maybe. So 25 years, for God's sakes. I don't know how it goes.
Not quite that long for me, about 20 years, but
Okay.
it goes way back. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember when it was hot, like, there's a few thousand in attendance. Let's talk about theanine. Theanine, because stress, it's a medical buzz term of the day for a good
Right,
reason.
it
Everyone
really
experiences it.
Everyone.
Your focus, having written, I believe, 4 books on the topic of stress and cortisol and high performance and so forth. What is your impression around this, time-tested and true theanine, and in particular Suntheanine, which we're fans of because that's where the human clinical trials sit.
Exactly. So theanine is what is old is new again, right? Theanine is having a resurgence now. It's been one of my favorite supplements since for the last 20 years. It's something I recommend because people feel it acutely. You can take theanine and feel it in an hour. You feel calmer, your brain wakes up, and you go away from these beta waves where you're irritable. You go into alpha waves where you're more calm and relaxed and alert and in the zone and things like that. But now we're seeing that more of the long-term data is coming out, right? So Suntheanine is a perfect example. They're one of the brands that has continued to do research along the way. So we know that kids can take it.
Yes.
We know that it can help with, normalizing the circadian rhythm of a stress response. We know that it can help with alpha beta waves, and the more that the research gets solidified, the more that something that we talked about 20 years ago is becoming sort of a mainstream thing now, where people are saying, well, stress is this big deal in my life for all the reasons. Here's a natural supplement that I can use, and it's we've been talking about it forever, but now it's becoming mainstream, which I think is amazing.
And you mentioned a really important point, because what we care about is, of course, safety, science, right? Traceability, transparency. We always want to know sort of where's this ingredient coming from, purity, potency as well, right? These are really important things. But, the idea behind this, not just the hours you clock on your pillow sleep inducement, so sleep architecture is very important, but then the safety aspect, studies, at least one that we know about by Dr. Lyon, out west in BC, on children which improved their sleep, that had ADHD, attention deficit disorder, attention hyperactivity disorder. And when you improve the sleep of a child with ADHD, well-diagnosed ADHD, you're seeing a repercussion, positive, on the following day or days of better focus, attention, alertness, and concentration.
Right, exactly. I say to people all the time that if you want to have a good day, it starts with last night's sleep.
Wow,
But
is that ever true?
A lot of times it's too late. Someone's saying, I'm stressed out, I'm irritable, I'm tense right now, what can I do? Well, theanine can help with that, but if you also take it right before you go to bed, Suntheanine is a great example of this because they have the data. You take it before bed, you have a better night's sleep. It's not a sedative, it's not knocking you out, it's not that sort of an effect, but it's helping with your brainwave patterns, it's helping with your stress physiology. You get a better night's sleep, you're going to have a better day the next day. And if you have a better low stress resilient day, you're going to have a better night's sleep. And you can see where this is going, right? You get out of that vicious cycle of being tense and irritable all day long, and then you can't relax and you get a crappy night of sleep, and that leads to a worse day. You get out of that vicious cycle of a bad day and a bad night, you get into this virtuous cycle of a good night leads to a good day, leads to a better night, leads to a better day, and that's what we want for our kids, but that's what we want for ourselves too.
Absolutely. Well, as co-founder of the DNA company, I got to say we've done over 22,000 deliveries of reports, so tests on 22,000 plus individuals, one of which a silo within this testing is called mood and behavior executive function, and I know this is your world. And there's a trifecta. Of course, there's more genes than this, but these 3 genes that we pay close attention to when we want to qualify somebody in particular for the use of certain supplements, adaptogens, things like theanine. And the first one's called COMT, C-O-M-T, catechol methyltransferase. Another one's called ADRA2B, which is basically the resultant, depending on your variant genetically, how well you manage or deal with, adrenaline essentially, right? And then another one, DRD2, is related to dopamine, right? So more than people think, it's not so much the reward hormone as much as the motivation hormone, right? Which you know about, I know you've written about this. So when we have variations within this trifecta, so somebody COMT is in charge of how quickly they'll break down catecholamines like adrenaline. ADRA2B, that hamster wheel potential that you might have, right? And then DRD2, how you manage dopamine and its responses for motivation. In certain variations, individuals will have that hard to fall asleep, mind racing,
Right.
hamster.
As soon as their head hits the pillow, the mind starts
right,
going.
and
Right.
guess what? Turns out this is, I want you to speak to this first. This is evolutionarily, I always fall back to evolutionary biology
Right.
when I'm thinking about how these complex systems work. This is survivalistic.
Right.
And most of us have the trifecta of these genes
Right.
that suggests we would all do well. Most of us would do very well taking theanine, particularly Suntheanine. But
Right, exactly.
why is this survivalistic? Tell us about
Well,
that.
it's survivalistic because if you're sleeping, you're vulnerable, right? The predator can sneak up on you, or the enemy can sneak up on you, and you want to be vigilant while you're asleep, so that you can hear the twig snap and you can hear them sneaking up on you, that kind of thing. If you had that, you survived. You passed on your genes. If you have that now, all you get is a bad night's sleep, and then you're grouchy the next day, and then you're irritable and tense and anxious and all the things. And so, what I love about what you just described, all that alphabet soup of all the DNA SNPs, is that different people will have different combinations of those.
Correct.
And how you perform, what your overall mental fitness is related to: are you high or low on the motivation? Are you high or low on the mood? How is your physiology working in here? I say to people all the time, how we feel isn't just here in our heads, it's also here in our bodies, and it's in our guts. And the more that we can look at something that is a holistic solution, something like Suntheanine really ticks a lot of those boxes.
Absolutely.
It can help with our mood, it can help with our stress, it can help with our sleep quality, it can help with our brainwave patterns. It really is something that should be used by everybody on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you a funny story here. Well, it's not so funny. It's just, my experience and anecdote. And just like you, I'm always looking for biological endpoints, either chemical, blood, genetic, obviously, or even wearable type of technology, to know that these things are working for me. So I'll get to HRV in a second, heart rate variability.
Yeah.
I can't cross my legs and my fingers like a Buddhist monk.
Right.
And get that sort of, end resultant meditative. I just literally don't have the attention span perhaps for it, which I know theanine helps with. Went to Japan at the base of Mount Shigisan, and then I did a 5-day fast with Buddhist monks, Gold Dawn, like high order. So I lied to you a second ago because I said I couldn't. I did it.
Yeah.
It's not that I can do it on a daily, but I did it with them.
It's not your default state.
It's not my default state. So I learned with these incredible people, and I saw them do it. And here's the one thing that I picked up on. We both know that the average person can't eat themselves to therapeutic ranges of certain ingredients, and theanine would be one of those. Theanine comes, of course, is found in green tea.
You find a little bit of it in green tea.
So, but here's what I observed: these Buddhist monks, besides their lifelong dedication in their order to getting and achieving this alpha state at like pro level, right? They were drinking, on average, 10 to 15 cups of green tea a day.
Right.
I have to think that's partly why, that the green tea, and of course the theanine found in green tea, was helping them achieve
100%. And that's something a lot of people don't have an appreciation for, even at the show like this, right? We'll go out there and we'll see, here's turmeric, here's saffron, here's green tea, here's all these things. And we as Westerners, right, we'll look at that and say, oh, it's a natural version of a pharmaceutical. It's a natural bioactive that has this effect in the body. And I'm guilty of that as a biochemist also. But if you look back into traditions, they would use the herb in context with a practice. So they would use something along with their Tai Chi or with their meditation. It would actually help them get into a deeper state of whatever practice they were trying to do.
Yeah, makes sense.
We can use that same mentality here in the modern world. We can say, look, I'm a stressed out executive, I'm a stressed out mom, I'm stressed out, whatever. How can I use exercise or use better sleep quality or use something like Suntheanine? Maybe instead of saying, well, or, we can say and Suntheanine can help you get better night's sleep, and that better night's sleep can make you more inclined to exercise the next day, right? So you can see how it all comes together, and that's what this natural product show should be all about. How does it fuel our healthy lifestyles?
Absolutely, and most of us need more of that. I think you made an unintentional pun there, mentality. And this is improved mentality in a bottle. In fact, if anything, I sometimes even refer to this to my patients as Buddhist monk in a bottle.
Exactly.
If you want more of that alpha wave, relaxed, focused attention, alertness, concentration, better sleep, better next day, it's Suntheanine.
And
again,
you be a little more zen, right?
And this is the human clinical trials, because there's a lot of theanines out there. We both know that. But Suntheanine is the one that has 200 plus human clinical trials behind it. So the science is there, right?
And it's pure L-theanine, and that's important, I think, because there are synthetic versions of theanine out there that end up being what's called a racemic mixture, right? So it'll have L-theanine, but it'll also 50% have D-theanine. And if you're not getting the pure L-theanine, that D-theanine is actually blocking what that L is doing. So you might as well not be taking anything at all.
Right. Well, let's debunk something else. Most people, we just talked about it, think theanine comes from green tea, and it's found in green tea. It's prohibitively expensive to draw
to extract
theanine from green tea. So you can't do it. You could, but it's very, very expensive.
Yeah, not to
It'd
the
be
levels
like $500 a bottle. Right.
Exactly.
So the Taiyo, which is a manufacturer in Japan that makes Suntheanine, ferments. They use a fermentation process from bacteriological fermentation to extrapolate this amino acid, because biological mechanisms, these bacteria can work for us, right? They make it for us, right? With the right conditions and circumstances. So you can take that pure L-theanine, put it into supplement form, and actually get this therapeutic end result of improved focus, attention, alertness. So I said I'd come back full circle to it, so now I will. Heart rate variability. So this is, people are doing more and more of this, found in your watches and your wearables. What it means, as you know already.
You're measuring it right there. I'm measuring it right here.
So what this means is maybe even counterintuitive to most people. It's not just the amount of times your heart beats in a minute. It's that variation between timing of that beat, which actually the higher that variability is, the more likely your heart's talking to your brain and saying, everything's okay.
That's right.
So here's my anecdote, and I know it's starting to percolate up into the literature. I take theanine, and I can see improvements in my meditative focus for heart rate variability.
Yes, exactly. Same. I'm exactly the same way.
It's amazing.
Yep. I take Suntheanine every single day, and I can see it in my workout daily stress heart rate variability that I measure with this. I can also see it in my nighttime that I measure with my sleep patterns.
Same.
But it's not just that your stress is lower and your heart rate variability is higher. What that heart rate variability higher is showing is that you're more stress resilient.
That's right.
And I think that's the most important aspect of it, is that we can not just lower our stress, but if we can improve our resilience, we can handle stress better, and we can perform better when we're in that stressful situation. And that's what we really want. We don't want to just knock ourselves out and be zoning out. That isn't what most people want. Most people want to say
sedation is not relaxation.
That's perfect. That should be a bumper sticker or a T-shirt. But if you can be more resilient in the face of stress, you can perform when you need to. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking for.
And as a nutritional biochemist, if we could switch gears here, I want to pick your brain about this. It's, stress, emotion, preconceived notions, all the stuff that we build up within the biochemistry in our brain, mental, emotional, that's not the only stress that we experience. Physical stress, and you've written books on this, physical stress, biochemical stress, can contribute to this whole cortisol response, which of course, as you describe, long-term cortisol response is really one of the most damaging, chemicals in our body. But, and here's where I was going with this, inflammation is really a big medical buzz term of the day for a good reason, and that's because that's the underpinning, the driver of all this cortisol. Can you unpack that for us?
Yeah, and they're all related to each other, right? So which makes it really exciting to study as a nutritional biochemist. So you can study the inflammatory cascade, you can study the cortisol circadian rhythm, you can study different ways of measuring oxidation and the balance between oxidants and free radicals. You can look at blood sugar stress, which we call glycation. There's so many sources of physiological biochemical stress in the body, and they all feed off of each other. So if your cortisol is high, you're very likely to also be too high in your inflammatory load. If your inflammation is high, you're very likely to be high in oxidation. If your oxidation is high, you're very likely to be glycated in a lot of your tissues. And so you look at that, and people are going to hear all these terms and go, oh God, now I need to control all of these. If you can come and control the cortisol cascade, that will help the inflammatory cascade. And then once that's balanced, that will help your oxidation. Once that's balanced, so they get out of balance in concert with each other, but they also balance together. And so that's what I was kind of referring to before, is that if we can start with you're gonna have to start somewhere. And what I love about Suntheanine is that for some people, it can be the easy button, right? Let me get my brainwave chatter down a little bit. Let me get a better night's sleep. well, hey, the next day I'm more energetic and motivated. Now I can start exercising, and now I can start eating better, and now I can start, so like it's not the solution to all the stress ills in our world, but it can start that process. It can be that first little thing that starts the avalanche of better lifestyle choices, and that's what we all want.
Dr. Shawn Talbott, so good to see you. Enjoy the show this year. What's new for you?
Well, lots of things new for me. I'm training a lot of coaches. I've got a certification program now to train certified mental wellness coaches around this whole idea of how you feel is not just in your head, it's also in your heart, it's also in your gut, it's also in your immune system, and really get them to think of, if I have this client sitting in front of me that wants to optimize their performance in whatever way, I have to think of them as a system.
Yes.
And I have to address that. When I use natural products, I have to say, well, this might work on this and that might work on that, and we really need to put together a whole regimen for them.
Beautiful. Where can people find out more about you?
Just go to my website, doctalbott.com.
Amazing.
All right.
Have a great show, brother.
Good to see you, buddy.
Thanks, you too.